We are going to start with emerging opportunities in sports. This is 5 tailored sponsorship opportunities for brands. We work with these guys all around the world, Ampere. They come and present at all our events, always absolutely brilliant. No pressure at all, Ed, but please give Ed a very warm welcome to the stage.
Hi everyone, my name's Ed and I'm here today to talk about the key opportunities for brands in sports sponsorship. So I'm very briefly going to begin to explore the question, why sports sponsorship and why now? And to do that I'm going to touch on 4 key talking points, which is reach and sports audience growth, the return on investment brands can get from sponsorship, new sports assets and the emerging sports properties that are taking the industry by storm. So here at Ampere, we conduct a biannual study of internet users, and as you can see, engagement with sport has grown globally over the last 7 years, and especially in APAC and in Europe. And I feel like in sport, we hear a lot of headlines nowadays that young people just aren't watching sport, and we need to reinvent the product in order to engage them. But I'm here today to tell you that they are watching sport, and the percentage who do so has grown by 23% proportionally over the last 8 years. And well, we know for brands that this is a really valuable audience because they have a higher ceiling for customer lifetime value because of their young age. And a key part of the sports audience, and the young sports audience, is that loyalty is a key part of their fandom. So I think it's important to look at context, what happened in the sponsorship market in 2024. And we can see that a number of brand sectors increased their commitment to sponsorship. Sports management brands and event brands such as Ticketmaster signed deals with a number of sports properties in the UK and Europe. The food sector grew with the likes of Kit Kat signing a first-of-its-kind deal with Formula One as the official chocolate bar, and a number of drinks brands poured into the drink sector, such as Red Bull, who signed an unprecedented 6 deals with Premier League clubs just this year. When we look at the US sector growth picture, it is slightly different. A number of cosmetics and personal care brands signed deals, particularly with women's sports properties, with the likes of Glossier expanding a deal with WNBA to also encompass the USA women's basketball teams. And what that allows them to do is piggyback off those big sports competition moments while also leveraging the star power of the likes of Caitlin Clark. Now, this slide shows product categories where sports consumer intent to purchase is increasing heading into 2025. And the first thing you'll notice is more sports fans are planning to buy soft drinks, so squash, fizzy drinks, and sports drinks, and also new streaming subscriptions. And this may be a knock-on effect of Netflix, for example, acquiring the rights of WWE and the NFL. But the other thing you may have noticed is there's quite a lot of overlap between some of these product categories and also the sector growth categories on the last slide. It may be that sponsorship is driving consumer intent to purchase heading into 2025, or it might simply be that brands know when to show up and follow demand. It's probably a little bit of both. So what I've done is I've just selected 5 key opportunities, 5 brand sectors where consumer demand is high, and there's also white spaces in the sponsorship market. Cosmetics and personal care, FMCG products such as food and drink, home improvement and household goods. And this is a really interesting category because in 2024, we saw the reported purchases of home improvement goods increase quite drastically within our data set. And when we look ahead to 2025, that intent to purchase is even higher. At the same time, there's not many brands in this space that are engaging with sports sponsorship, so a clear opportunity there. Entertainment services that we've touched on, like Netflix and Spotify, and also consumer electronics, but more specifically in the US based on the consumer demand. But we'll obviously have to hold our breath and see what the impact of tariffs will be long-term on marketing budgets over there. So we talked about, very quickly, sports audience growth and some return on investment, but brands also have to leverage the right sponsorship assets to meet their marketing objectives, and they need to select the right sports properties. The good news, there's more assets and more sports properties available than ever before. And firstly, one of the most valuable assets to brands and properties is kit and equipment. And the reason for this is it just allows for really repeated and widespread exposure across a number of channels, both online and offline. And in the UK and Europe, we've had front of shirt sponsorships for roughly 50 years. So it might surprise you that in the US, the jersey patch, which is the equivalent of a front of shirt, wasn't introduced until 2009 in the WNBA outside of soccer. and 2017 in the NBA. Following that, the NHL and the MLB have also introduced other kit assets, such as helmet, sleeve, and again, the jersey patch. Now, this has been a huge commercial success, and when we look at our sponsorship deal database, we can see that there's been a 65% increase in spend by brands just in the last 2 years on helmet sponsorships, and a 74% spend on jersey patch. And when the NBA released the jersey patch, they had some pretty lofty estimations about how much it would be worth. But when we look at our model data, we believe that it's worth more than twofold of what they predicted. So what can we learn from the US model over here? Now, the first, brands in the US don't just sponsor stadium naming or the advertising boards around a pitch. Within the stadium, they sponsor other physical spaces almost 100% of the time, and there's a real range of brands across even just one stadium. So that's hospitality, lounges, seating areas, even car parks. And what this allows for is brands to have a presence across specific parts of the fans' match day journey and really align products and services and brand values to those specific parts. The second is we see a lot of brands sponsoring unique moments outside of that match day that cross over with other interest points. This could be music, luxury, fashion, entertainment, gaming, comedy. And really with this kind of branding, it allows for when Coca-Cola, for example, sponsor the Detroit Lions, the walk-in area into the stadium where players are wearing designer garments. It allows for that kind of content to go viral because it crosses over with other interest points and it expands the audience. And Coca-Cola are always there for that content for Detroit Lions. And the final one is diverse and abundant community work. Now, there's some brilliant community work going on in the UK and Europe in sponsorship, but this point is more that it's just a little bit more common in the US. The proportion of brands across each, for example, NFL team who have a community program is very high. And also the diversity of community programs is pretty wide. You have anything from animal welfare, youth, diversity, health and wellness. So it just really allows brands to tell kind of really niche and tailored CSR stories in their marketing. Moving away from assets and over to properties, you can see here that brands in ages gone by had a very kind of straightforward choice. You know, it's an international governing body, a domestic league, or a sports team within football. But there's these new upstart properties that are changing the landscape that are coming through, such as Baller League and Kings League. And for those who don't know, they bring about smaller teams, faster format, gamification of traditional rules, and the embedment of influencers and former pros in their format. So the power of those properties isn't proven long term, but brands right now have more choice to decide where and how they show up and who they're targeting. This is happening in other sports properties too, and really this is to engage the younger sports audience. So as you can see from this data, 18 to 34-year-old sports fans are more likely to follow athletes and influencers. They're looking for content that feels personal, and they're watching clips, highlights, and viral moments all through social media platforms. So the last slide, just to touch on, are the benefits of traditional properties versus your upstart properties. And the massive one with traditional properties is just simply the reach and scale that they offer, which often is the priority objective for brands. Whereas upstart properties will offer a smaller but targeted audience. The second, value transference and history and tradition. I mean, if we take England Rugby as an example, they have decades of meaning behind their brand. And when O2 sponsor both the social and the national jerseys, they can really tap into pride, passion, and history. And over time and considerate and frequent activations, they really begin to associate with those emotional values on their own brand through that sponsorship. On the flip side, upstart properties like Baller League take O2 again. They sponsor the halfway line in the Baller League. And what that really allows them to do is stamp themselves within the DNA of the sport. They're consistently visible across every game. They're never off camera. And perhaps that's something they wouldn't be able to do within a traditional sports property. And finally, traditional properties offer that mass market audience, whereas upstarts will offer access to younger fans. So just to wrap up, we've very quickly touched on 4 key points that can start your thought process around why sports sponsorship and why now. But firstly, the sports audience is growing, and especially those hard-to-reach young fans. Intent to purchase is increasing across priority sectors. Brands have more innovative assets to activate than ever. And the choice for brands to tell their story through different sports is better than ever before. Thank you.